Antahkarana and the EGA, Introduction Book 2, Part 2, Morya, January 12, 2018. Continued from Part 1. I now wish to speak to you of the Antahkarana, and to do this I am going to speak of it in terms of its own language that Dual Kul delivers within his many books. I shall do this by taking many passages direct from the books that shall provide a summary of what you can expect if you continue to read this book too to its end. We dedicate the following to our beloved brother Dual Kul and his heartfelt devotion to his own earth mission and divine plan and purpose. Individual initiation is challenging to understand and describe, because it refers to states of being you haven't attained yet. Group initiation is even more abstract, especially to the individual consciousness, which means that any consideration of the group Antahkarana is necessarily difficult to put into words. Still, there are a number of things that can be said about the Antahkarana in group context that can be useful to aspiring disciples who seek to develop their group or develop themselves within a group. In both individual and group context, developing the Antahkarana is a fundamental aspect of initiation. Remember that no major initiation can be taken until there is some measure of conscious use of the Antahkarana. Similarly, groups being prepared for initiation should consist only of those who are in the process of building the Antahkarana. More specifically, the Antahkarana can be considered as a measuring stick of awareness. That's because initiation indicates mastery of or freedom from the influence of a particular plane, and the Antahkarana is a bridge or roadway of consciousness projected through the planes. For example, the Antahkarana must be completed and direct contact must be established with the spiritual triad by the time the third initiation has been taken. For the fourth initiation, the Antahkarana provides the road to renunciation through which one withdraws from form life. It is with the Antahkarana that the initiate is concerned in the fourth initiation. Group initiation is an important macrocosm of personal initiation. Similarly, the group Antahkarana is a macrocosm of the personal Antahkarana. Understanding and promoting the development of the group Antahkarana assists in understanding and promoting group initiation, along with one's individual Antahkarana. One can't study individual initiation to any serious depth without also considering group initiation. Group awareness and service grows as the individual personality is refined through the first few initiations. After a certain point, individual initiation and group initiation are inseparably linked because the individual is integrated with his or her group and has transcended self-interest and individual will. Hierarchical level concepts can be better understood in a group context or on an individual level by aligning and identifying more with the group. With respect to the individual Antahkarana, when the disciple has flung one strand of living light through the power of magnetic love across the space separating the triad and the personality, he discovers that he is a part of a group. A particular group is usually composed of individuals of varied stages of the spiritual path who have achieved different levels of personal initiation. In general, it seems that the status of a group as a whole is lower than the average of the individuals within it. For example, a group of seekers who have passed the second initiation individually probably haven't developed their group as a whole enough to reach an equivalent level. I like to use an analogy based on music. A collection of skilled musicians thrown together doesn't make a skilled orchestra, at least not until they practice together and develop experience as a group. Group initiation is generally a more advanced concept than individual initiation, since it not only requires individual initiates, but also for them to come together effectively. For example, if the average individual in an esoteric group is around the third initiation, the group itself may only be near its first initiation. A similar concept is how standard systematic initiations are offset by two from higher Syrian initiations. For example, the third systemic initiation is also called the first Syrian initiation. Given the advanced status of Sirius and its special relation to our system and hierarchy, Sirius inherently holds group ideas for us. Because Syrian initiations are offset by two from the individual systemic initiation, there might be a similar average offset when comparing individual and group initiation. Group initiation can apply not only to esoteric groups of disciples, but also to humanity as a whole. The human kingdom stands ready for the ordeal, and the acolyte of fire, preceding the first initiation. At the final stage, humanity today stands. The personal Antahkarana allows the individuals to achieve initiation and liberation from matter and form. Similarly, the group Antahkarana allows the group and even humanity as a whole to do so. In the many strands of light woven by the aspirants, disciples and initiates of the world, we can see the group Antahkarana gradually appearing, that bridge whereby humanity as a whole will be able to abstract itself from matter and form. The individual Antahkarana starts by bridging a link between the personality and soul. Therefore, the group Antahkarana forms a link between the group personality or manifestation in the three worlds and the group soul. However, when the group is considered at a large enough level, the group Antahkarana really links kingdoms. Specifically, its purpose is so that there may be established a group Antahkarana between the kingdom of souls and the world of men. In general, the Antahkarana provides a conscious link to higher states of being. Insight from soul or triad levels can impress the individuals via the personal Antahkarana. Similarly, group thought and development can be impressed by the group Antahkarana. Master D.K. emphasized the use of constructed group Antahkarana when working with his group of disciples. I shall let you know which are the hints I give, so that together the group may profit by them. This will result eventually in an inflow of light from the spiritual triad via the group Antahkarana, constructed of the rainbow bridge of each disciple. For the individual, the Antahkarana first links the soul, and then the permanent atoms of the spiritual triad. The hierarchy, the kingdom of souls, works mainly upon the planes of the triad. However, the group is a macrocosm or a higher spiral version of the individual, which already works with the hierarchy to some degree. Therefore, for the evolved group, the group Antahkarana can project toward higher levels of being, namely Shambhala. This is illustrated in the statement that the group Antahkarana becomes a channel of unimpeded communication direct from Shambhala to the group because every member of the group is a member of the hierarchy. In this manner, the three planetary centers arrive at the needed relationship, and another great triangle reaches true functioning activity. Another way of understanding the development of the Antahkarana at Shambhalic levels is that individual will is increasingly replaced with awareness of divine will. In this context, individual will means the will of a lower personality, or even the individual will of a group. This is illustrated in the following quote: "When the Antahkarana of a group is rightly constructed, then the individualized group will disappear in the full consciousness of the monadic purpose or clear directed will. There are points which a disciple preparing for initiation has to consider as he prepares for the higher initiation, and these are the points which any group or ashram in preparation for initiation has also to consider. How does the aspiring group proceed to build the group Antahkarana? To begin, forming the personal Antahkarana is something very individual must do for themselves. Your method of building the Antahkarana will be very much your own. The guidelines can be given, but the interior process must be worked out by you and you alone. It follows that each group must also form the group Antahkarana in its own way, with no hard and fast rules. However, we can at least say that the nature of the individual or group, and the rays of their soul and personality, influences the manner in which they approach the Antahkarana. For a large enough group, such as the Antahkarana for the kingdom of humanity itself, the group is conditioned by Ray 2, the soul ray of humanity and of our system, and therefore follows the Ray 2 will to unity. On a fundamental level, it is important to realize that the Antahkarana, whether individual or group, is a bridge of consciousness. It's not some material construct built outside of oneself, but is rather a representative of one's own awareness. That means the Antahkarana is built through experience, experiment, and one's own effort, which in turn means the group efforts promote the group Antahkarana. Consider the quote that all growth is through experiment, struggle, and persistence, hence the present modern upheaval. It is significant of a pushing through to the light of the world, as well as the group Antahkarana. That quote also shows that much growth of the Antahkarana, whether individual or group, can happen unconsciously. One of the Antahkarana meditations says, "It will take years of study, application to build the Antahkarana to the point of real usefulness, unless considerable work has been done, most unconsciously in previous incarnations. Effectively building the group Antahkarana depends upon building an effective group. That means increasing group unity, group identification, and group participation and cooperation. These points are illustrated in another directive given to Master DK's disciple. The great need for all of you in this group at this time is consciously to relate yourself to each other in an increasingly close union. The building of the group Antahkarana as a part of the great life thread can only thus be carried forward effectively. So therefore, that this group identification goes on with all the cooperation which you can render. Building the individual Antahkarana consists of the 6 steps of intention, visualization, projection, invocation and evocation, stabilization and resurrection. Building the group Antahkarana involves the same steps, although it's important to realize that these steps need to be applied in group form. The points below assume that one is already familiar with these steps to some degree as they apply to the individual. Some additional comments about each step with respect to group context follows. Intention. The individual forms a personal point of tension on the highest subplane of the personality, which is the 4th subplane of the mental plane. The development of group tension is described in Rule 1 for disciples and initiates, which directs the group toward a newer tension. Visualization. Visualization involves imagination, and imagination vibrates on the level of the 2nd highest astral subplane. Unlike other steps, group imagination perhaps has the best capability of being done to some degree even by an individual. Imagination allows one to visualize that which isn't true. For example, imagination allows one to visualize the Antahkarana, even if it hasn't been built yet, which of course acts as a blueprint for actual construction. Similarly, an individual can help visualize the building of a group Antahkarana, even as an individual. Projection. There aren't any direct references to the term group projection in the Alice Bailey books. However, to active group projection, when working with the group Antahkarana, we use group projection with the 2nd ray words of power. I see the greatest light, because humanity as a whole has a Ray 2 soul, and we live in a Ray 2 system. Other non-human groups in other planetary or solar systems are associated with other rays, and therefore use the word of power for alternative rays. Invocation and evocation. Invocation is very much a group endeavor. Group invocation can be seen in several contexts. The result of invocation is that it enables the group life to be transferred along the group Antahkarana and focuses it once and for all in the Master's ashram. Stabilization. The final steps are outside the control of the individual or group, and little is said about them. One point that is made is that when the Antahkarana does finally reach monadic levels, it's initially thin, and it must be used in order to become thicker and stable. That means the Antahkarana isn't something that's built once and then ignored, but rather is continuously expanded and exercised. Resurrection. Esoteric resurrection doesn't mean returning from bodily death, but rather rising to a new spiritual awareness. However, this state of spiritual livingness could be considered exalted enough that the previous condition is dead in comparison. Resurrection takes place at the lofty 7th initiation of the same name, as well as to the degree of the 4th initiation. The renunciation process of the 4th initiation and the transcendence of the causal body can take place on a group level, as well as for an individual. This is described as the outer group dies, occultly speaking. The soul of the group being now merged with the life aspect on the levels higher than those of which the causal body exists, is no longer of major importance. The great renunciation takes place, and the causal body, having served its purpose, dies and is destroyed. In building the Antahkarana, step 3 of projection is accompanied by a word of power appropriate for the soul ray. A word of power is really an idea or declaration composed of several words indicating how each ray approaches the process of union between personality and soul and spirit. The soul will and word of power for each ray is listed below. Ray 1. Nature, will power. Focus, initiate. Words of power. I assert the fact. Ray 2. Love and wisdom. Focus, unity. Words of power. I see the greatest light. Ray 3, nature, intelligent activity. Focus evolve, words of power. Purpose itself am I. Ray 4, nature, harmony through conflict. Focus harmonize, words of power, to merge with one. Ray 5, concrete science. Focus act, words of power, three minds unite. Ray 6, love and devotion. Focus cause, words of power, the highest light controls. Ray 7, nature organization. Focus express, words of power, the highest and the lowest meet. The individual Antahkarana features the colors of one's soul and personality rays. In the group Antahkarana, it is described as all 7 colors of the rainbow, or all 7 ray colors, which represent the ray colors of all the individual Antahkaranas composing it. These appear to be two different descriptions. However, on closer consideration, the individual and group Antahkarana are arranged and colored similarly, just that the individual is a microcosm of the group. The group Antahkarana isn't just all 7 colors, but it also emphasizes the color indigo. Indigo is the Ray 2 color, which emphasizes the Ray 2 of humanity in our system. Similarly, the individual Antahkarana isn't just 2 colors, but is also tinted by various sub-rays for the personality vehicles. In other words, all Antahkarana, both individual and group, feature a primary ray color and a variety of other ray colors that properly act as sub-rays to it. The primary color is usually the color of the soul ray. However, if the disciple or group has evolved such that the Antahkarana is approaching monadic levels, then one is presumably focusing upon the monadic ray and its color. At that point, the soul ray is properly a sub-ray of the monadic ray, just as earlier on the path, the disciple worked to make their personality ray a sub-ray of the soul ray. Understanding of the group Antahkarana can be increased by looking at 2 particular areas within esotericism. Seed Group 4, New Age Educators, specifically promotes building the group Antahkarana. This seed group works to develop education of people on all levels. More specifically, its 3 tasks include educating the illiterate, the middle classes, and the most cultured or those on spiritual path. Education includes knowledge as well as wisdom, making this group focused upon developing and connecting the lower mind, abstract mind, and the soul, which together form the 3 aspects of mind. Those connections are similar to the connections formed by the Antahkarana, which is why this seed group is associated with the Rainbow Bridge. Education and culture being applied to the masses emphasizes the group, and therefore group education promotes the group Antahkarana. The book Discipleship in the New Age, Volume 2, presents 6 formulas, which are described as fundamental prerequisites for initiation and second-ray presentations of soul ideas. Formula 2 promotes alignment and revelation of the group Antahkarana. Specifically, this formula concerns alignment with the soul and later with the spiritual triad. These alignments are made via the Antahkarana, which explains why this formula is related to the Antahkarana. At a more universal level, Formula 2 is about transition from the unreal to the real. Ultimately, the Antahkarana acts as a roadway of consciousness for the individual and group to travel from the relatively unreal and limiting worlds of matter to more expanded and true levels of consciousness. Also, Formula 2 presents 4 elements with their spiritual qualities of earthly contact: oceanic synthesis, area expansion, and fire relationships. The 4 elements together encompass all possibilities in a manner similar to how all colors are included in the rainbow, which aligns with the Antahkarana, whose symbol is the Rainbow Bridge. In Rule 1 of the 14 Rules, Dwal Kul says this also: in the last analysis, these rules or formulas of approach are primarily concerned with the Shambhala or life aspect. They are the only formulas or embodied techniques at present extant which have in them the quality which will enable the aspirant to understand and eventually express the significance of the words of Christ, life more abundantly. These words relate to contact with Shambhala. The result will be the expression of the will aspect. The whole process of invocation and evocation is tied up with the idea. The lesser aspect is ever the invoking factor, and this constitutes an unalterable law lying between the entire evolutionary process. It is necessarily a reciprocal process, but in time and space, it might be broadly said that the lesser ever invokes the higher, and higher factors are then evoked and respond according to the measure of understanding and the dynamic tension displayed by the invoking element. This many fail to realize. They do not work at the evocative process. That word simply connotes the response of that which has been reached. The task of the lesser aspect or group is invocative, and the success of the invocative rite is called evocation. More about the Antahkarana can be found in the Alice Bailey books, The Rays and the Initiations, Discipleship in the New Age, Volume 1 and 2, Esoteric Astrology and Education in New Age, to mention but a few. So in closing this introduction to the Elemental Grace Alliance Book 2, the group Antahkarana, I tell you that just to study the 14 rules of the Antahkarana does not necessarily grant one a group Antahkarana. Understanding and practice are two very different things, but one does lead to the other to go hand in hand. Meanwhile, we here within the Elemental Grace Alliance Council Divine Plan shall continue to develop these concepts in ways that can be absorbed, understood, and implemented by the many for the greatest good of all concerned. The Elemental Grace Alliance is not the same as any other group presently operating here upon the planet. It is but one divine plan unfolding here for the benevolence of all. But we tell you this, having magnetized unto itself, into the physical plane, all 7 spheres of influence, and who, through unascended human beings, upon the ground have created the potential to unite Shambhala, hierarchy, and humanity into a spiritual triad, and who are working as representatives of the supplementary 7, the One, those upon the ground, all in accordance with cosmic law. Therefore, let it also be known that these formulas of approach or rules of initiation deal with the unfoldment of group consciousness, because it is only in group formation that, as yet, the Shambhala force of the will can be tapped into. They are useless to the individual under the new initiatory dispensation. Only the group, under the proposed new modes of working and of group initiation, shall be capable of invoking Shambhala. For more on this specific reference, go to Rays and Initiation, Alice Bailey's study of the 14 Rules of Initiation, Rule 1 and 8. We, the Elemental Grace Alliance Council, are calling once again for your help and assistance to now expand this divine plan into many of the various aspects of its God's purpose. The EGA shall need multiple resources very soon, human, financial, material, to continue and magnify its programs. I leave you now to discern for yourself what has been shared here, with this excerpt from Joseph Benner in the book Brotherhood, A Call to Service. The I Am Present says, when a message comes containing an opportunity for real service, and disclosing a real plan and a real work for the helping of your brothers and sisters, not some vague, high-sounding ideal, but a definite practical work that your soul recognizes, and your heart leaps forward in glad response. Know that such response is my voice calling you to the work I have been preparing you for, and you need not question or doubt, for your soul commands you to obey. But if there is no glad response in your heart, not even a faint voice there calling upon you to investigate, as there may be something in this for you, and instead there is only a coldness and an entire lack of interest, know that the message is for others, and that particular work is not for you, for you could be of no assistance, not being ready for such work as yet. But if hearing, and at first thus happily responding, if but for a moment, before doubts crowd in and from other sources come advice and argument, criticism of that particular work, or of the way it came to you, or of the messenger who brought it, fast smothering the urge in your heart, still trying to hold your attention, know that I am but trying and testing you, to see if you are as yet ready for the work which I always have awaiting my proven and faithful servants, to see if I can use to awaken and prepare my other children, so I can unfold my nature in them, that they can feel me as the love in their hearts, and can thereby hear my voice here, and know I am their higher and real self, and that I am calling them also anxious to lead them forth into the new day. For all those reading or listening to this, you can feel your inner light being ignited by your I Am Presence. You will know what to do. Behind the group there stands a door. Before them opens out the way. Together let the band of brothers and sisters onward move. I am El Morya at your service.